Good morning, everyone. Thank you. I've been very pleased to hear from my previous speakers here in this panel about what's happening in shipping. The changes so much, and there is over-regulation, but the people who make the over-regulation do not come from a maritime background. So therefore, we are stuck with it. And I find this out more and more when I sit as permanent representative at the IMO, just what is really going on. But today, I'm talking about the shipmaster. How are we going to retain shipmasters when the demands on what they should do with less time to work in, and should it go wrong, that they become a criminal? Just this week, the master of the Erica has not been working for 13 years while the case processes slowly through the courts. He's never been convicted, he's never had anything, and now we don't know what will happen. Other cases, like the Hebe Spirit, the master became a political pawn in a huge game that lasted nearly 2 years, and some of the deprivations that he had to go through in the prisons in Korea should not have been. Yet this is what happens. So I'm hoping this morning to bring some of the parts to you to make you realize what is happening and what is going on. Criminalisation of the seafarer, and particularly the master, is still small in relative numbers, but it is growing. And what happens not only to the master, but to his family, to his friends, a whole network of people, is so important. Now, the demands of the master for his time and ability are being stretched to new limits. The advent of the STCW 2010 amendments came into force on the 1st of January 2012. When we talk about hours of work and rest, which way do you use the STCW? Do you work by hours of work, or do you work by hours of rest? If you calculate the hours of rest, they're more flexible than the actual hours of work. The master continues to see more and more administrative tasks being awarded to him. But where is the time to complete these and ensure the ship operates at peak performance? It's an impossible equation. Masters are doing their best, crews are doing their best, demands are coming more and more. As we've already heard, I sat at the beginning of September about the SEMP training course for how we will go about, and the EEDI or the EEOI, or any of the other acronyms, abbreviations. And it depends which committee you're sitting on or which piece of legislation you're looking at, whether your interpretation of the abbreviation is correct or not. Add to this the increasing number of masters who are being prosecuted as criminals, and the recipe is set for disaster. Criminalisation of the master, there appears to be in shipping that the common rule does not apply. Innocent until proved guilty when it comes to shipping does not hold good. It would appear the more saying of guilty until proved innocent is what is happening, and in certain extreme cases it is absolutely terrible what goes on. If this situation continues, it will drive away more seafarers to leave the sea instead of staying. Therefore, senior officers will leave the sea. All that expertise will be lost. It will not be easy to replace, if ever to be replaced. So therefore, the expertise pool that we have in shipping in certain countries with a long tradition will drop further and further. So therefore, as the expertise and the knowledge drops, the cases of prosecution and criminalisation will increase. The result will be more expertise being lost that cannot be replaced. And I can't emphasise this enough. And a long-term experienced master, chief engineer, senior officers, they have a duty of their knowledge, their experiential learning, to pass it on to the next generation. If we lose them, that expertise is not passed on. So what will happen? Criminalisation of the master. This is not to say every master is innocent, no matter what. Don't get me wrong, there are cases, that yes, the master is, but that should be decided in court, not murdered in the media that you're guilty. I mean, I don't really want to talk much about the Costa Concordia because there's just been so much said. But the media, once again, had Captain Scatino as a villain. Yes, he made a terrible mistake, but we still don't know why. And as we said earlier this morning, the accident happened on the 4th of January this year. But we still haven't had a report. Not a proper report to say what has actually happened. We've had the VDR did work, the VDR didn't work. The contents of the VDR are being unable to be translated into language. We're having problems with this. The watertight doors were open, watertight doors were closed. Some were closed, some were open, the whole lot. Yet one of the things about the support for the master in this case, I asked the Italian administration, I said, you've got all this timeline. Yes, yes. So when did the designated person find out about this? What? I said, what about under Section 8 of the ISM Code, that the emergency response team that's available 24/7 by the company? When did it convene to give him any support? Yes, but we'll move on to something else now. So we didn't get any answers. There's so much left open in this case that will become a major point. And hopefully we'll start getting answers at MSC 91 in the end of November of this year at the IMO. But to get back to what we're saying, it would be stupid, but at least being given access to proper legal defence and the ability to return home or earn a living while the case continues is so important. You see masters, senior officers, crew members losing everything. They have no money coming in. They can't afford to pay the bills. They lose their house, ends up in divorce. There was even one case recently where a master committed suicide because the way the company treated him, because they'd taken a stance that was actually found out by the end of the investigation that he actually stopped the case becoming worse. His ship, everything he did was right, it was correct, he prevented an even bigger disaster. But he couldn't live with the shame and all the other pressures that this was brought on. Or that they have proper insurance cover in place to protect them and be able to bear the costs involved. I'm going to surprise you with some of the costs. One master in Panama, they've already spent $50,000. Friends and family have raised the money. He's now been told it will be a further $250,000 US to take the case to court. In the meantime, he's now 13 months living in a Panamanian prison, which I would not recommend to anyone. Or that they have, well, P&I clubs will help. It does not appear to be understood by many that its primary consideration is to protect the interests of the ship owner, not the crew. Now, I'm not blaming P&I clubs. A lot of P&I clubs do a lot of very good work and go beyond the remit. But just a few weeks ago, a captain turned up at one of my associations. 8 weeks after an incident, he's now facing charges, he'll probably go to prison, but he went with a P&I lawyer. He didn't think he needed his association's legal representation to protect his rights. And now his association has a major job in its hands to try and undo what has been done, to get proper case made, to reduce the charges and try and get proper justice for him. The results in masters are being left unprotected. And that is not the fault of the ship owner, it's not the fault of the industry. It's because it's not really understood. And what is happening, the evolution of the shipping world has become in some cases that unscrupulous shipping companies have cut a deal with the authorities, sacrificed the master so the ship can be released with the cargo and continue on trade. It's not to be recommended. One of the things that came up recently, the weighing and contents of containers. At the IMO DSC Subcommittee Session 17, which started 17th of September, just last month, at plenary of the subcommittee, there was an extended debate over the weight of containers where wrong tonnages were being declared and the contents not as stated. What a surprise to us that have worked in shipping. But the whole supply chain, from starting when the cargo was going to be declared to be loaded in a container, nobody whatsoever would take responsibility for checking the correct weight and checking that the contents were as declared. At every step, no one was held responsible for checking that declaration was correct. All the way through the term, it was still left untouched. Then suddenly, once the container is on board the ship, the master is responsible for the weight and the content. And one young person from an administration at the IMO said, well, if the captain's not happy, he can stop the containers being loaded and have them checked. I thought a 10,000 TEU ship in port, all the timetable for everything, the sequence of containers for loading and discharging. I could see the container world grinding to a halt very quickly. I asked the question, do you go to container terminals very often? No. Have you ever been? No. So really, do you know what you're talking about? No. But I think it's a good idea. Okay, this is what we deal with. Now, have I gone back the way? Yeah. Some statistics. Now, the figures are from Seafarers' Right International. That is an independent arm that's grown from the International Transport Workers Federation. And they continue to do very good work. They get involved. We work together very closely on this because one of my pet things, one of the things I'm dedicated to doing is stamping out criminalisation. I'll fight it everywhere to get seafarers proper justice. But the figures from here, 3,480 seafarers as of February 12th. These were from 18 countries and from 68 nationalities. That's what I was saying. How do we man our offices? You go to any shipping office now, it's multinational, the workforce. You know, I actually get quite surprised. A lot of people come from warm climates to work in shipping company offices in Glasgow. The weather is appalling. It really is. So how they have to adapt, because it depresses me, and I've lived there for 59 years, so what they must think, I don't know. But 8% had faced criminal charges. 4% had been witnesses to criminal prosecutions. 33% knew of colleagues who had faced criminal charges. 24% of masters had faced criminal charges. Many of the cases they'd been dropped because they couldn't have the evidence. Many of them had gone through all kinds of loops, been taken ashore in handcuffs, bundled into police cars, held in cells to be questioned. 44% of seafarers reported they had had body searches. Not that they wanted them, but they had them no matter what. And 87% of those who faced charges related to the discharge of professional duties had no legal representation. They were on their own. They didn't even have people who had been advised from their own country, from anybody from their embassy or consulate. There was nobody from the company, nobody from the P&I clubs, nobody at all. They were on their own, and they were facing charges. But add to that, 91% of seafarers who needed interpretation services, they weren't provided. So they were being charged and being questioned in a language they didn't understand. It was noted down, and their defence was nothing, because they didn't know what was being asked, so they couldn't actually reply. 89% of seafarers who faced criminal charges stated that they did not have their rights explained to them. Well, if you come back to the previous figure, if you don't understand the language, you won't know what the charges are. 80% of faced charges felt intimidated or threatened. I don't know about you, but you know, downtown Lagos, central police stations, not one of the salubrious parts of the world you ever want to find yourself in, especially once you're taken past the front desk and put in the cells with maybe 40 to 50 people in a cell. You know, it's quite intimidating. 46% felt reluctant to answer questions after the above. They just clammed up. There was nothing they could do. They didn't know what would be interpreted from anything he said, so they just had to remain mute. 81% say who had faced criminal charges did not consider that they had had fair treatment. Fair treatment, MLC 2006, coming into force next year. The rights of the seafarers, yes, there's a lot there. Does it meet criminalisation? No. Some case studies. So this is some of the ones I want you to think about. Mass trader Panama, a lot of it I can't go into because cases are going on that could be construed as professional misconduct. Panama, 169 kilograms of drugs found in bow thruster compartment. The master to this day remains in detention. That was it. It was found, he's the master, he's responsible. No investigation, nothing. The SV Nicolai in Spain, 3 tons of cocaine found on board, captain and crew in custody. 2 crew members, it appears, have cut a deal to blame everybody else. They've been released to go back to Bulgaria. It's a very difficult case because there's so much evidence, but one of the questions is, in Spain, which is an EU country, there's been 1 lawyer appointed to every 7 crew members to do their case. We're going to have a lot more about this. The daughter of the captain is so upset. She's been sending messages everywhere. And it's a great shame, but I don't want to go into too much, but on the net you can find a lot about this. Even the Bulgarian government have kind of walked away. There's conspiracy theories out now and everything. The Ocean Atlas, Venezuela. American ship, weapons aboard, all legal, all recorded, all declared, all locked away safely. But an administrative mistake, vessel and crew released after 21 days in detention with the master taken ashore. The Venezuelan government says, oh, we're sorry, it was a mistake by one of our people. 21 days to sort out an administrative mistake? It was quite big news and got released. The Star Princess, Caribbean. Crew accused of not rendering assistance to a ship in distress. That was back in March until September now. Case dropped after photographic evidence. Now, what happened was, this is where ship's crews have to be very careful. Some of the passengers saw a ship in distress, and they supposedly reported it to the crew. It seems to be a steward who didn't understand them for language problems, that wasn't properly reported to the bridge. Next thing was, there's cases being brought up. They managed to find the Panamanian seafarer who survived this fishing boat for 30 days in this wreck that managed to stay afloat. His other 2 crew members died or disappeared, we're not sure of it. Everything has been done. And suddenly, somebody says, well, wait a minute. We now have 2 sets of photographs here. We have the photographs from the cameras and the iPads of the passengers, and we have all the photographic evidence of when the seafarer, the fisherman, was picked up. And so they gave it, the court, they ended up with 6 different cases being raised. Unfortunately, Star Cruises was part of the Carnival group, the same as the Costa Concordia. So it was a witch hunt. But they gave it to this gentleman who was an analyst for the NSA, National Security Agency of America, former employee there, and he found that the 2 ships that this fisherman had survived on were different. It's a miracle. He got a new ship that then sank as well. So the cases are now dropped. It's not going to progress anymore. There's also some crossover about criminal acts and piracy attacks, and this is increasing off Nigeria, where kidnap and ransom are rising. If you commit an act that could be construed as piracy, but it's in national waters, it's not. It's a criminal act. It's not piracy. So it doesn't come under piracy. So you have to go out with national waters to commit an act of piracy. And it's starting now, though. On the 30th of August and the 6th of September this year, 2 separate tankers were stolen off of Togo with the idea they had already found buyers for the cargoes, so they were stealing the tankers for the cargoes to sell, then give them back. We also had that one of the barges had the worst case on it. It was a Netherlands-registered barge where the captain and 3 crew members were kidnapped. There was a big firefight. 4 of the armed security guards on board were killed, 2 were wounded. They took them away, but suddenly they were released within 2 weeks. No word about ransom. The initial ransom was $4 million US. The master had been taken. He'd managed somehow to take the ship's mobile phone and charger with him, and he was conducting negotiations, so nobody's saying what they were. So this changed. We don't know exactly what happened there. Possible solutions. I don't know where we go. I have people saying, oh, my brother or my father has been found supposedly charged. Can you give me $250,000 US so I can fight his case in court? If I had $250,000 to give away, I'd be living here in Greece, lying on the beach every day, getting a suntan, not worrying about life. But this is the ongoing, it's the way the money is going up and up for these cases. And it's not until people get into trouble that they find out what is going on. So should mariners carry personal insurance to cover such incidents to ensure they get a fair deal? Maybe. Who should pay? The individual and the company. Now just take it what we're talking about. Reduced revenues. Are the companies going to pay the insurance? I don't think so. Masters are more liable to prosecution than other crew members. Should protection be directed at them? Well, there already is. There are certain insurance policies that can be bought by masters that give them coverage to $2 million of legal fees. Their salary will be protected throughout the time of the case, etc. But it's not well taken up. A lot are still thinking it won't happen to me. There are a few personal protections which have varying sets of cover. One of the covers sounds good until you find out that what it's covered the people for won't even get you to the first case in court for the arraignment of charges because it costs so much. Should they be used or new cover produced? There's a rumour in London at the moment. I can't get a handle on it. It's been very well protected. But on the 11th of October, which is only a few days away, there seems to be that there will be a new insurance cover released for all seafarers who want to buy it and have it in place. That's it. It should prove interesting. The question is, where do we go from here? I don't really know. I just want to see seafarers getting a proper deal. I can fight it. I can help. There's a number of associations and organisations now who do help seafarers and their families. They work very hard at it. Regrettably, there's not enough funds to go around to fight everybody's case or even be able to pay for people's cases. But in conclusion, shipping is evolving. Part of this evolution is not about business models, but due to external influences such as criminalisation, as we talked about, piracy, abandonment, shortage of seafarer numbers. We don't have a glut of seafarers in certain parts of the market. There's a shortage and it's growing. Abandonment is supposed to be covered under the MLC. But as yet, nobody's put in place the model of how they will actually put the funds in place to cover for abandonment. Good companies will always take care of their people. That's not a problem. It's the other companies that just throw the ships away and leave it. If the seafarer feels they're not being protected, given access to human rights and fair treatment, then many will leave. Solutions need to be found, but how can they be financed? At the time of austerity, there's no spare money about. There's so much new legislation, and we're not talking about finding tens of thousands or $100,000. We're talking about finding millions to implement it. Where's the money going to come from? So this is minor in respect to many things, but it's going to be important if we want to man our ships and keep and retain professional seafarers. Thank you.